I represent Orange County. I have a constituency which about 50% of people agree with me and about 50% of people don't. I haven't been in Washington as long as my colleagues who are running, and I think that is an asset. I got my start in public service because Washington was too complacent about the problems that families were facing. I came to California in the midst of the foreclosure crisis, and I was helping California families who had been cheated into bad home loans, and they were being cheated back on the way out with regard to foreclosure. And during that time, I stood up and pushed Washington to do more to address what Wall Street had done to our economy and the lasting consequences of it. And so I'm really thoughtful about how we need to shake up the Senate, how we need to restructure some of our beloved institutions, including Congress, to make them work better.
So you mentioned that you went to Congress to take on the issues, the economic issues you felt that leaders were being complacent on. Can you give us specific things you could do in the Senate to address those kind of Main Street economic issues that people are feeling?
Yeah, so let me give you a couple of examples. In the Congress, both in the House and the Senate, unlike in the California legislature, housing isn't even a full committee. It is just a subcommittee of banking. And doesn't that tell you what you need to know about how Washington is thinking about housing? They're thinking about it as an engine to fuel Wall Street profits. They're not understanding what it is to everyday families, which is something that determines your job opportunities, the kind of public education your kids get, whether you breathe clean air and clean water, whether you're going to be able to save for a secure retirement. So one of the concrete examples I would say is if we need to make sure Washington is structuring its work around our biggest problems. Some of these committees have not been revisited, or the structure of them haven't been revisited for decades. Another example I would give you is the way that I have tried to push to think about using hearings as a real tool to do the work of Washington. When I got there, hearings were treated as like you just go and you sit there and you read off a piece of paper. And those are 5 minutes that we have to communicate with our constituents, and they're every bit as valuable, I would argue more valuable, than the speeches that we give on the House floor. And so things like being able to push Jamie Dimon about his bank teller who couldn't make ends meet. 2 weeks later, Bank of America, its competitor, raised their minimum wage to $20 an hour. So it's an opportunity to have conversations with those who have the power to change things on the ground.
Have you taken a position on expanding the Supreme Court?
Yes, I have. I believe we should expand the Supreme Court because there's not enough justice in this country. I was a consumer protection advocate before I ran for Congress, and if you talk to union labor lawyers, if you talk to consumer protection, if you talk to people who do employee discrimination, they will tell you these cases do not make it to the court, that the court's docket is small and it has been shrinking comparatively to the number of conflicts and the number of laws they have to administer, and the result is that a lot of the cases that need to be heard and decided are not actually being heard. The second thing is, we have to be honest, the Supreme Court is corrupt. That is where we are today, and it is losing the confidence of the American people. So it's not just about adding a number of justices, it's about how we add them in a way that guards against that kind of corruption. And so this means, at the same time we're talking about adding justices to the Supreme Court, revisiting the process that the Senate uses for doing that, in terms of trying to come up with something that has more of these safeguards. So better disclosures on the front end, more robust oversight at these judicial nomination hearings to find out about conflicts, better oversight of justices' conduct for recusal and ethics while they're there. And so for me, the goal here is to deliver more justice at a higher level of trust from the American public.
So you're running against two of your colleagues who are very experienced. Just crystallize for us, what are the main differences either in character, style, skill, or policy or politics that makes you a better candidate?
So, I mean, to sum it up, I didn't go to Washington to follow the rules. I went to rewrite them. I have seen in my own life, in my children's lives, who I'm raising here in California, that Washington isn't always solving and our biggest problems, and they're doing too little too late in many circumstances. Climate change is an obvious example. The costs of college were beginning to swallow middle-class families when I went to college 30 plus years ago, and yet we have not tackled bringing down the sticker price of college. And so I want to go to not just say, oh, I have the same old bill from 1992 that I've been trying to get passed for 30 years. Some of those bills need to change because some of the problems have gotten worse. And in some cases, problems have gotten solved on the ground. I think I'm willing to do that. I think how I fund my campaigns matters. I'm not bought and beholden by special interests. I'm also a risk taker in the sense that I'm willing to be straight with constituents about what I believe and about why I'm doing it. My record of transparency and governance, I think, stands out. I also think Californians are shopping for a political leader, not just a policy one. We have big shoes to fill in this state with the changes that we've seen in our California leadership and that we're going to continue to see. And I know how to activate and engage the very voters who are pulling back from our democracy, who are skeptical about it. Increasingly, people are registering as no party preference. They don't trust either party. They don't trust how Washington has been working, and they want to see someone who's willing to have the conversations about how to change it.